Remember, kids, always wear your seatbelts, unless you want to look cool. Andrew, and this is Gayties Toys. On today's MIA 80s Ladies, we're going to be talking about a line that was certainly, past my time, and one that isn't really discussed a lot in current times, but it is one where if you mention it to someone of any age, their faces just light up. It's just a fun, dumb line, and I gotta talk about it. So let's just get right into the incredible crash dummies, Darlene. Imagine, if you will, it's the late 80s, even the early 90s, and legislation is finally rolling out across the country demanding that people, must wear their seatbelts while driving a car. For some people, and I don't know who these folks are personally, but some people got very, very mad that the government was telling them what to do with their bodies and how to, express their rights to put others in danger. Difficult to imagine, I assure you, but let's just bear with me here. As part of this rollout, the National Highway Traffic Safety Association throughout the United States released a series of PSAs with starring 2 crash test dummies promoting the benefits and intelligence, frankly, of wearing your seatbelt. The stars of these PSAs were 2 crash test dummies named Vince and Larry, as well as sort of a rotating cast of other dummy characters. They proved perhaps not popular, perhaps not, beloved, but certainly, charming in their own way. And, success enough where the administration decided to really, push this whole message to its absolutely absurd next level. Partnering with Tyco Toys, who partnered themselves with Jim Byrne and David McDonald, who are best known for Inhumanoids, they decided to sort of create a toy line based around these PSAs. Basically, this was the kind of like smash and crash kind of 6-year-old play mentality, where if you take a toy car, them young kids are going to smash it up. So the toys were built with that in mind. Each of the figures had 2 buttons, top and bottom. The top would blast off the figure's arms and head. The bottom would blast off their legs. Luckily, no one was really harmed. They could just pop them back on. Likewise, the vehicles came with very similar-ish kind of things. If you smashed a car up against a brick wall, the car would simulate a car crash. And if the characters had a seatbelt on, they'd survive. If they didn't, they'd fly right through the windshield. So that's fun. Kids line. These line first came out around 1991, 1992. It was a wild success. I mean, kids did really, really love this. And I mean, personally, I was a little too old for it, but nevertheless, I sort of saw the commercials. I saw them in toy aisles while looking for, cool adult things like cigarettes and Power of the Force. But nevertheless, I mean, this was a smash success for Tyco. Part of what makes something a smash success is controversy, because that makes it forbidden, cool. A lot of moms got, a little upset about this line, sort of questioning the actual benefit of it. Was this thing actually teaching kids about seatbelt safety, or was just, glamorizing the violence of a car crash? I'm of 2 minds of this. I mean, they're not wrong, but also, chill out. Another controversy was sort of some of the newer characters that came along with Series 1. One being, of course, like a baby who would explode apart, as well as 2 pets. Hubcat and Bumper. These pets would sort of essentially smush under, the weight of a car, which, again, kids line, making pet death cool. These 2 were adorable. They very specifically said they had 9 lives, so, no pets were harmed in the making of these toys, but it's a little weird too. The administration got a little squirrely around this controversy themselves, and so they sort of, actually pulled these PSAs down. Likewise, Tyco, in order to sort of distance themselves from this controversy and from the PSA, sort of removed Vince and Larry, but absolutely doubled down. They were like, we've got money in the bank and we're not stopping. So they continued with the wave 2, rebranding the whole thing the Incredible Crash Dummies, and just pumping out vehicles, characters, play sets, video games, you name it. I mean, the entire, kind of 90s marketing machine was in full effect for these puppies. Going as far back as the original PSAs, there was a female crash dummy named Darlene, although spelt in that sort of trailer park way. She was pretty much denoted simply by, having a bow on her head, which is the universal language in cartoons for making a male to a female. As a recurring character within, the media, as it were, Darlene was seem to have been planned for wave one. However, there was a bit of a backlash, and we'll get to that. It's unknown if she was ever prototyped, if anything were to happen. It seems that, her design would eventually sort of just go to the character Daryl, who was sort of a little more of a slender build than most of the rest of them. Darlene would be revisited in the very final wave of the figures under the incredible Crash Dummies wave, in that she was in fact prototyped, and she looked again very much like slender, feminine body, and again, instead of a bow to denote that she was a female, she had 2 yellow ribbons coming out of her hair. Again, there's a bit of pushback. So Tyco went to their key demographic, young boys. I don't really know exactly what happened, but the way it's described feels like, the reaction was bad, real bad. So bad that Tyco kind of basically recoiled from the notion of including a woman in this line, despite the fact that they had wanted to include the cast from the PSAs, but also appeal to girls. So whatever happened in that meeting, Tyco said, I guess not, and I, for one, would like to go back in time and punch those kids in the face. I'm not above it. I do kind of liken Darlene to Jenny from Bucky O'Hare, who was one of my very first videos because she's my favorite. She was certainly prototyped, and when the line was over, she kind of entered into, the public domain, as it were. The designers managed to get some, pieces of her, the original prototype. That said, unlike Jenny, she made out with a few production samples out in the wild. Darlene, not so much. There's pieces of her, literally pieces of her, floating around out there for sale or in private collections, but really only one prototype is known to have been released into the wild, and that's, owned by an anonymous partner who I would like to find. If you're watching, call me. This is a line that I would have loved at the time, and I still kind of do want to buy some vintage versions of it. But every time I do, I actually do look up Darlene on eBay to see if I can find her and forget that she wasn't even made. So it's one of those things where, then, like now, no ladies, no money. I had actually come in here pretty certain that the line was done in 1994, and that was the end of it. Glad I checked my notes, because apparently, not 10 years later, in 2004, Mattel, who had since gobbled up Tyco in 1997, did release Crash Test Dummies under their Hot Wheels umbrella. Since there were no more PSAs to sort of support the line as media, a series of shorts were made. Very, very crappy shorts. Very bad, very, very bad CGI. So I do not recommend watching these. They are bad. That's my one takeaway. It's bad. Once again, you had a series of characters that were vaguely familiar, however, still no Darlene. So again, no money. It's really unfortunate. It's one of those things where, I do kind of look to see if at least customizers have done her. If there are any Crash Dummy customizers out there, call me. But it is one of those things where she has a pretty easy kit bash of Daryl at the very least. But, time of recording, 2025, I don't expect to see these back. I think the whole hoopla around seatbelts has sort of died down considerably since the, mid to late 80s and early 90s. So, that time has passed. That said, they go for a decent price on the aftermarket. It's a fun line. It's just one that I wish we had a little more of a world-building experience with Darlene. And that'll about do it for Darlene from the incredible Crash Dummies, a line that's, I think beloved, if not largely forgotten, but also completely sexless without women with little ribbon for hair. So I want to thank you for watching, for liking, for subscribing, all those YouTubey things, and I will see you next time on MIA 80s Ladies.